This is the Navigating Finances Living with the Neuromuscular Disease session. We have an incredible speaker with us joining virtually, Emily Munson, and Emily will share a little bit more about her connection and her work, and then we'll do an audience Q&A at the end. So take it away, Emily.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. We today are going to be covering what might not seem like the most fun topic, but you're going to learn a lot of loopholes that I hope give you hope and will help you build wealth, even as a person with a disability. So you may be wondering who the heck is this woman who's come to speak with us. So I'm Emily Munson. First and foremost, I am a person with an NMD myself. I have spinal muscular atrophy type 2, and I'm a 40-year-old woman. Um, so at this point in my life, I need assistance for every activity of daily living. The last one I could do independently was feed myself, but I lost that ability during COVID. So I am very reliant on Medicaid for things like personal care, attendant care, that kind of thing. Um, in addition to my lived experience, which is what really motivated me to study law, my academic background is in health law and bioethics. Um, I'm sure that you guys understand that you really do need to know the law better than state and federal regulators. At this point in your lives, you might already feel that you do. But to get any respect from them and to be able to go toe to toe with them, I felt that a law degree was right for me. Um, in terms of my work, I did work at the state. Well, I'm from Indiana, by the way. I live in Indianapolis. Um, I was an attorney and an administrative law judge for a couple of years at our Medicaid agency. And so there I was reviewing trust documents, and I would see things like people being approved for Medicaid, even though they had $7 million of assets. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? But it was completely legal. So I learned a lot about Medicaid loopholes in that job. And from there, I moved on to be an attorney, and now I am the policy director at Indiana Disability Rights, which is our protection and advocacy agency in Indiana. So we advocate for the rights of individuals with disabilities, including helping them in terms of employment discrimination, leveraging work incentives, and that kind of thing. Um, Disability advocacy really is my life. I've been on the boards of the Governor's Council for People with Disabilities, the State Rehabilitation Council, um, the National Board of the Association of People Supporting Employment First, and currently am a member of the National Governing Board of National Consumer Voice, which lobbies for quality long-term care. And I'm the chair of the Indianapolis Mayor's Council on Disability. So I promise you, I live and breathe disability law. Um, and that is why I was invited to share what I know with you guys. So there are many myths around um, wealth and disability. I'm guessing a lot of you were surprised when you heard me say that you can have $7 million accessible for your benefit and still be on Medicaid. So let's address some of the myths. A lot of people think that they can't work because they have a significant disability. That's BS. In addition to working my full-time job, I'm also an adjunct faculty member at the law school. I also have various side gigs where I might get speaking honorariums and whatnot. Um, and like I said, I'm a person that needs assistance with every activity of daily living. So I'm not saying it's easy to find a job that's the right fit, but it's possible, and no one should give up on that goal, regardless of their disability. Um, a lot of people tend to think, okay, well, even though I have the skills and knowledge and will to work, um, I need a caregiver. And because I need so much care that I can't pay it out of pocket, I have to stay on Medicaid. And Medicaid and other benefit programs won't let me earn. I I can only have, $2,000 in assets at any given time. Okay, again, not true. Um, it is true that Medicaid is the primary payer of long-term care. But we're going to talk more about why that $2,000 limit is not not what you might think in a few minutes. Um, Another myth is that some folks worry that they still have to have only $2,000 in resources, if not for Medicaid, then to keep their SSI benefits. Um, Again, I think that's dumb. If you can earn more than, if you can earn and be making more than the less than $1,000 a month that you're getting through SSI, then why would you want to even keep that? Why would you not earn more money if you can? I understand why people need to keep Medicaid, again, for medical reasons, including long-term care, but cash is cash. So whether you're getting from SSI or a job, what does it matter? Your only concern should be more is better. Um, Folks like us are not doomed to a life in poverty. We can have nice things, I promise you. And I want to show you how. So, um, again, I agree that caregiving is important. Um, and I think it's because Medicaid regulations are so complicated. Even a lot of lawyers and judges can't follow them if they're not regularly using them in practice, that there are a lot of opportunities for misinformation and confusion. Um, and then again, as I mentioned, there are phrases in those regulations and policies that don't have the typical meaning that they do in common parlance, that they're a term of art with a special meaning. And so uh, I'm going to share that with you. And then once you know what I know, you will agree with me that it's possible to be a millionaire and keep your benefits, or your Medicaid benefits, that is. Okay, so what you probably know or have been told is that Medicaid allows you, or okay, when we're looking at Medicaid eligibility, one will be financially eligible for Medicaid, and for that matter, SSI, if they have $2,000 in resources, 3,000 if you're a married person, and the income limit is generally about $1,800 a month. Um, or in some states that's different. California, for example, I believe doesn't have income or asset limits anymore. Um, and depending on your Medicaid program, you might have a different income limit. But let's zoom in and look at that resource limit that I mentioned. Okay, well, Medicaid, believe it or not, does not count every resource that you have. Resource for Medicaid means only countable resources. So, what is a countable resource? It varies by state, but it's generally the same. Um, you are allowed to have a house, one home. Uh, you are allowed to have one vehicle if you use it to get to and from medical appointments. Um, you're allowed to have, uh, and when I say you're allowed to have, I mean these are not countable. These items don't count toward the $2,000 limit. Um, and you have a burial plan up to a certain amount of money. Um, you can have items in your house that you need to, cook, prepare food, uh, clothing. Generally, these things are not countable resources. Um, and what the Medicaid eligibility team is looking at are generally cash, land, second houses, second vehicles, that kind of thing. Um, Additionally, I would encourage you, uh, for that reason, not to necessarily share everything when you fill out the paperwork. I'm not encouraging you to lie. Like obviously you need to count your stocks, your bank account, all of that stuff. But you don't need to necessarily write down, I have a $10,000 engagement ring. I have a $2,500 TV and video gaming set. I mean, Medicaid, I've never seen the Medicaid eligibility team come out and like assess the value of all of the items in your home. So maybe don't offer that to them unless you are asked. Um, I also want to let you know that that $2,000 in resources, and this is very important, it can only be counted on the first moment of the first day of each month. So if you have someone who works and you get your paycheck on, the 31st, you really need to convert it, if that's going to put you over $2,000, because then you will have more than 2,000 at the first moment of the first day of the first of the month. But outside of that, hey, you can have whatever resources you want in the bank. I mean, I have direct deposit uh, through the state from my paycheck. So I've had $7,000, $8,000 in my bank account at any given time during the month, other than the first moment of the first day. Okay, you might wonder, well, how do you get rid of that money, Emily? Well, you have to then consider, can some of your resources be shielded into non-countable resources? Yes. Um, I'm talking about things like special needs trusts, able accounts, and we'll hear more about those in a little bit. But let's turn to income. Um, again, uh, Medicaid calculates income in different ways. And you need to think about whether the income you receive is earned or unearned, because that has a big difference. Medicaid counts unearned income dollar for dollar, but unearned income is counted generally 50 cents on the dollar. So you can, if there's one individual on Medicaid who has, only unearned income from a pension, and there's another person on Medicaid who uh, all of their income is uh, wages for work, then the worker will be able to have double the income that the pensioner is allowed to have. Because, again, earned and unearned income are counted differently. But if your income is still above the threshold, think about whether you might be eligible for a different Medicaid program. In Indiana, we have over 40 different Medicaid programs. And the one that I'm on, and the one that I would encourage all of you to get on if you are employed, and there's one available in your state, is the Medicaid buy-in program. Normally, the Medicaid buy-in program, again, every program differs by state, but you are allowed to earn a lot more money. In Indiana, I think now, the last time I looked, if all of your income was earned, you could earn $105,000 a year without having to do other things, um, like deducting parent-related work expenses, which we'll talk about before you were in jeopardy of becoming financially ineligible. There are 2 states that don't have a Medicaid buy-in program, unfortunately. One is Alabama. I believe the other is Tennessee. It's either Tennessee or South Carolina. I can't remember. Okay, so maybe you're in a situation where you do have unearned income and it's rendering you ineligible, or you have too much earned income. You need to look into something called, in Indiana, we call them Miller trusts. Miller was the name of someone in a lawsuit where the courts said these trusts are legal. In other states, they are called sometimes qualified income trusts, or QITs. But basically, an individual would work with an attorney to create a Miller trust, and rather than unearned income like retirement benefits going to the Medicaid participant, they go directly into the Miller trust. And you can even have an attorney situate it so that the Miller trust is just a pass through, and that extra income automatically funnels into a special needs trust for the participant. I know that slide is a lot. I've thrown a lot at you, but bear with me. So, what tools do I use in handling my finances? Um, like I said, I'm on Indiana's Medicaid buy-in program. Um, so I am able to earn six figures, low six figures. Um, I maximize my retirement options. Um, because I'm a state employee, I have a 403B plan. It's like the public version of a 401k. Um, because I work for the state, I also have a pension, and then I have a Roth IRA. So, I'm gonna take a drink. Hang on real quick. I'll be right back in a minute. Okay. So, my Medicaid buy-in program specifically says retirement accounts are exempt from being a accountable resource while an individual is working. That's why I maximize them. Um, and then I also buy non-countable resources. I really like nice jewelry. And while many states consider jewelry countable, um, no one is coming in my home looking through my jewelry box, deciding whether the gemstones are real or fake. So, you can get creative. Um, maybe you decide to update your van. And so you sell, your accessible minivan and you upgrade to a custom made, accessible, Ferrari. I don't know. I don't think a Ferrari could really be made accessible, but maybe you have the money to pay for it to be done. Um, I have an Able account. We'll talk more about those. I created my own special needs trust. I put my money in it, so it's called a first party special needs trust. Um, any money that remains there when I die will have to be returned to the state, and then I deduct impairment related work expenses from my taxes. Um, there are more tools that you can consider. We talked about Miller trusts if you have the need for one. Um, there are, in addition to first party special needs trusts, others can create one for you, um, either through a testamentary trust, meaning when your relatives die, they could create a trust for you. Um, you really don't want to inherit any resources directly. They should all be inherited in trust. And so, if you, excuse me, if you know your loved one is planning to leave you assets, you'll want to make sure they use the right language. If your relatives or another loved one wants to give you money or land or some kind of asset before they die, they could create a third party special needs trust for you. Um, and what's nice about these trusts is that because it is not money that came from you, it does not have to repay the state when you die. Um, Pool trusts are a thing, but I don't recommend them. You might have heard something called the ARC Trust. That's an example of a pool trust. Basically, it's a nonprofit organization managing a giant account with sub-accounts for every beneficiary. And when the beneficiary dies, the state gets half and the nonprofit gets the other half. Um, I don't like them because I think that puts the nonprofit trustee in a conflicted situation. Why would they give you any money out of your trust if they get to keep what's left when you die? You know, I don't like them. Um, and then there are some really good um, uh, perks if you're on SSI for being an entrepreneur. If you set up a uh, some kind of business where you are a sole proprietor, then you are allowed to have a business account for that endeavor. And there is no asset limit on that. So technically, you could have your company buy things like, a vehicle and use it as your second vehicle, or a building in which to do work. I'm not gonna dig into them, but I do talk more about them in my book, which I can talk to you about later. Um, all right. So, um, able accounts. Uh, Basically, individuals are allowed to put money into their able account. There is a limit, but the limit depends on whether or not whether or not you are employed and your employer has a retirement account that you can participate in. Um, but basically, um, that money goes into an account, and you don't have to choose the able authority in your state. Um, I I created my able account way before Indiana was an able authority. So right now my able account is in Nebraska. Nebraska was the third state, I believe, to become an able authority. Um, each authority, and by that I mean like money manager, has different perks that you want to explore, like different investment options. Some allow you to have a checking account, some allow you to have a bank card. Um, I just use my able account more as a medium and long term investment vehicle. Um, and basically, any money in that account you can spend on qualified disability expenses. What does that mean? You're probably thinking healthcare goods and services, things you need for your disability, like medical equipment. Um, yes, you're right, but the definition is a lot broader than that. Um, QDEs can be education related, so you could pay for tuition, training, food, housing, transportation. whether that be, getting a monthly bus pass or saving to get a new wheelchair accessible vehicle. Um, um, Employment training and support, assistive technology, PCA services, and then administrative services like hiring a financial manager, hiring an attorney. Really, uh, QDE is, you can justify nearly anything as a QDE. And to show you some creative options or how I use them. Um, I used my money 2 years ago to buy a house. Here's me and my service dog and my realtor. Um, and I I didn't have a low enough income where I could leverage down payment assistance. But if you guys are earlier in your career, uh, or still looking for a job, you can really combine money in your able account and incentives to make a bigger down payment. Um, Remember that uh, the money will not be countable if you put it toward your house because a primary residence is generally a non-countable resource. And then keep in mind that even after you become a homeowner, you can still use your able account for things like home modifications. I'm currently in the process of that right now. We haven't broke ground yet on my addition, but we plan to do that before the end of the year. So, another example, I mentioned that you could have that you can pay a caregiver out of your able account. You might be thinking, well, why would I do that if Medicaid is going to pay anyone anyway? Well, Medicaid won't pay for you to have an aide while you're traveling. So here I am in the big photo in June. Um, I used able account money to pay for my PCA there, Sophie, to go with me to Greece. We are at the Acropolis in that photo, I believe. In the upper right-hand photo, I paid for my dad's airfare and lodging and food to help me while I was in Iceland. And then I did the same in the bottom right photo in Barcelona 2 years ago. So you can remember if you need a PCA, um, their expenses can be a QDE. I wouldn't pay for my travel as a QDE, but you definitely pay for the PCA. All right. So let's turn to special needs trusts. Um, I let you know there are three kinds, and you need to think about who is putting the initial money in the trust. Is it you? Is it someone else? Is it part of a settlement? And the source of that money will largely guide whether you have a first party, third party, or testamentary trust. Um, and if the money could come from more than one source, um, you likely want separate accounts, separate trusts. You can have more than one SNT at a time because you really want to limit um, the state recovering your money when you die. You want to give your money to loved ones, right? Um, So you don't want to mangle your own money in a third party SNT, or else it will become a first party SNT and the state can take whatever they want. Um, Not whatever they want. They can take up to the total amount that they paid for your care, which is probably all you have in the SNT. Um, think about too whether you want the trust to hold any assets other than money. My dad, he doesn't have a special needs trust, but he does have a trust that our house is kept in, our family home. So maybe you have a second home, which would be countable, but you don't own it technically. Your trust owns it, so it's not countable. Um, you also, when drafting an SNT, want to think about who will serve as your trustee. I highly, highly, highly recommend um, a family member that you trust. My sister is my trustee, and we had a long talk about what my trust would be used for. Um, and you also want to be very clear, even if you have a good trustee, about what the money in the trust should be used for. Um, if you want to use it to go on vacations, then you need to put that in the agreement. If you want it to pay for uh, technology, make sure that is explicit in the agreement. Because even if you have a good trustee, um, the bottom bullet point here, what if they die? And what if you can't find someone that you trusted in the same way? Um, it's always good to have subsequent trustees listed in a trust agreement, um, but not mandatory. Um, Another thing, a lot of banks um, or nonprofits will agree to be a trustee, but they charge administrative fees a lot of times. So if you don't have a lot of money, you really don't want anyone charging administrative fees, or your money will dwindle quickly. All right, here's my service dog, Rigby again. He wants to talk to you about impairment-related work expenses, or IRWEs. These are deductible from federal taxes at the end of every year, and basically they are expenses that you have as a person with a disability because you are disabled and working. So I bring my service dog to work with me, so I'm able to deduct um, the cost of his food, vet bills, treatment medications, his leashes, and other supplies from my income, my federal uh, gross income. Again, you can deduct out-of-pocket expenses for a caregiver, getting you up in the morning. I know sometimes um, I get thrown off of Medicaid accidentally, and I have to pay for caregivers out of pocket for a couple of weeks at a time. That's something that I can deduct because Medicaid has never paid me back for that. Um, and another early is uh, expenses related to treatment for your disability, like mileage to the doctor's office, any parking fees that you pay. Um, and that is a really quick rundown of some tips and tricks. I wanted to let you know there's a lot more that I haven't gotten into super deeply, but I do have a book that goes over. I have um, a chapter, a whole chapter on able accounts, a whole chapter on entrepreneurship, a whole chapter on trusts, countable and non-countable resources, MedWorks, which is the Medicaid buy-in program. Um, it's less than $20. It's on Amazon.com. You can find it by typing in my name. Also, if anyone is working with vocational rehabilitation and has difficulty, I've also written a book about how to advocate for yourself um, when dealing with VR programs, and I cite to federal statute. So if you're appealing, you can really easily um, know what you're talking about and cite the appropriate statutes for the judge. So please check out my books. And otherwise, I'll take questions now, or you can feel free to email me at emily.munson.esq@gmail.com if you have questions you think of later in the day or even after that.
All right, thanks so much, Emily. Really appreciate all that informative info on finances and navigating. We are going to open it up right now to our audience Q&A. So I think we have a first question over here.
Hi, my name's Gabe. I was wondering, I thought that a Roth IRA was counted against your total assets. Is it not for some reason, or is there a way to make it so even if it normally would, a Roth IRA would not be counted against you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Normally, retirement accounts like an IRA are accountable, but certain MedWorks programs, I keep saying MedWorks, I'm sorry, Medicaid buy-in programs will exempt any retirement account from being counted as an asset while you are a participant in that program. So I'm able to have a Roth IRA because I'm currently in a Medicaid buy-in program that exempts retirement accounts.
Great. Any other questions? Back here.
Hi, my name is Cindy. Assets.
I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My name is Cindy Kinane, and my daughter is 17 years old, and she just started an internship, and she's earning money. And in our state, I believe the income limit, the resources is $4,000. Were you saying that, so earned income is counted half?
Yes, it should be. And it's great to hear that your daughter has a paid internship. I don't know if she currently has SSI, but SSI also has a higher income limit for students who are interns. They're allowed to make so much extra during the year. I can't think of the number offhand, but the number is in my book.
So I guess my concern is, let's say she has about $2,500 in her account now. It's okay. Like, should I set up an ABLE account, or can she start paying rent? Like, so.
Either way, you can charge rent, or if you want her to benefit from her earnings, I would do an ABLE account. You could do a special needs trust. Able account is probably the easiest. You don't need to meet with a lawyer. You can just set one up online. The National Resource Center, ablenrc.com is a wonderful resource to compare all of the different able authorities and find out what state or what authority would have the best options for your daughter. But you definitely don't want to have, um, I mean, if you're telling me the limit is 4,000 rather than 2,000, she would be okay with $2,500 in assets in a bank account or whatever. As long as they weren't coupled with other assets that would put her over that limit. But there's no harm in setting up an able account ASAP. Um,
So if I set up the able account, you just transfer the money to the able account
yep,
and I
Yep.
can,
you can do it all online.
she can use the money from the able account for the things that you said she could use it for.
Yep.
And as long as, and how much money can you have in the able account? It depends on the state or,
Yep, yep. And if you go to that ablenrc.com website, one of the things you can compare is the lifetime cap on savings by able authority. And then I believe it's around it's the upper teens in what you can save per year if you're not also using your able account as a retirement account.
and then we also have a trust that has a special needs trust built into the trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like my husband and I. So like if we were to pass, I guess,
Mhm.
maybe half of what we have, because we have one other child, would go into the special needs trust so that the state can't take it. Does that make sense? Something
Yep,
like that?
yep, absolutely.
So that's not, that would be a different special needs trust, right? Like you could set up one for her.
That would be kind of a testamentary trust because it would be created upon the death of you and your husband, whoever is the last to pass, I'm assuming. Um, and then it would go into the special needs trust for your daughter with a disability, and then the other half would go to your child without a disability. So yeah, I mean, you can create a special needs trust uh, within a testamentary trust.
Okay, I think that's, and then when that money goes into there, can that money only be used for certain things?
No, well, yes, whatever you say it can be used for.
Oh, so I'd have to look and see what it says.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a long time. Okay, so I guess I should get on it right away with the Able account.
It doesn't hurt at all. What's nice about the able account is that your daughter can access it independently, unlike having to go through a trustee to get anything in a trust.
And you said they look at it on the first day of the month at the first moment. And then on day 2, you could add like $2,000 to the account.
Yep,
And you'd be okay as long as you spend it before.
Yep, that's whatever is accountable asset. So like a bank account or stuff. Yeah, that's the first moment of the first day of the month.
And as far as spending, like she could just buy a new phone or she could buy.
Yep.
And as far as like if she started to pay me rent, does that have to be a consistent amount?
Yeah, I think otherwise they would be, by they, I mean either the state Medicaid eligibility folks or the folks at SSA would think something fishy was going on.
And then if you are working, did you say in order to maintain Medicaid, are there higher limits for people that work that get Medicaid?
If the state has a Medicaid buy-in program, yes. And I think you said you were from Pennsylvania, right?
Actually, we're in Rhode Island.
Or Rhode Island, yeah. They have a Medicaid buy-in program.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any further questions? All right, I guess we'll wrap up here.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming today and inviting me to be with you. I really appreciate it and hope you were able to get something valuable out of our time together.
Thanks so much, Emily.
Have a good rest of your conference.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Emily. And we will head on to lunch. And then if you want to come back after that, we will have an afternoon.